Hey everyone, Dolf de Roos here, and often I talk about investing in real estate in terms of investing in commercial buildings or maybe houses, but what I want to discuss with you today is what are the merits of investing in land. You see, land has so many opportunities as well, and there are nuances that make a big difference. Let's check it out right now. We are exploring real estate. You have to check a building out when you're inspecting it to see if it's got everything you think it's got. This one claimed it had a roof. We have to check it out. We've just come off the roof and we're looking today at buying land. Now, I've done a lot of deals with land, different forms of it. We'll go into that in a bit. But what I want to discuss today is the 4 things that you should know before you buy any land. When you think of it, real estate is a term that refers to the physical land, any structures on that land, and any resources attached to the land. So real estate is a generic term that includes the actual physical dirt and anything that is on it that is permanent. So in general, there are 3 types of real estate. There is raw land. This is just pure land with nothing on it. And then there's land ready for development. This might have roading put in and water lines and sewerage lines, but there are no buildings on it yet. It's ready to be developed. And then finally, you've got what we call property. This is land that already has structures on it. There might be commercial, there might be industrial, there might be residential. It is land that is ready to be occupied, or it probably is already occupied. And the question becomes, which is the better development, land or property? Let's analyze a few factors. Number 1, cash flow. Does my real estate produce income? Well, when you look at land, there is no income from the land at all, unless perhaps it's being used as a farm, in which case you might collect a fee from the farmer who's leasing it from you, or maybe you're using the land as storage for vehicles overnight. But in essence, in most cases, raw land has no income from it. And with no income, in my books, it means it isn't even an investment, because one of the qualifying factors of an investment is it has to generate income. That's what makes it an investment. When you buy raw land and it doesn't have income, you are basically speculating. You are hoping that at some stage in the future, you can sell it for a higher price. It's the same thing you do when you buy baseball cards or Bitcoin. You're hoping that it will go up in value over time. But in the meantime, there's no income. It's not an investment. On the other hand, property, which has structures on it, buildings of some kind, you've got tenants there, and those tenants pay you rent, so there is income. So when we compare the two, land doesn't score very well, property does very well. So far, it's a win for property. So the next item to look at is appreciation. And appreciation comes about through 2 factors, really. One is through general inflation. The number of units of currency or dollars that you have to use to describe the value of a piece of property, it tends to go up. But also through an increase of supply over demand, the value goes up. So for both those reasons, land tends to go up in value, but at the same time, property tends to go up in value. Property, after all, incorporates land. So in this case, with appreciation, both land and property have a win here. So the third item concerns depreciation. And we all know that land and buildings tend to go up in value over time, and the government very generously allows us to depreciate these things. However, the government's not so silly as to allow us to depreciate land. Let's think of why there are tax rules in the first place. One of the main reasons for imposing taxes is to generate income. But another reason is to shape social policy. And the government knows that in general it's not very good at providing accommodation in the form of housing or commercial accommodation, so they encourage us to do it by giving us a tax break. It's called depreciation. However, you cannot depreciate land. You can only depreciate the non-land component of a property. So when it comes to depreciation, you cannot claim any on land, but you can on property. And that's why in this case, it's a win for property, unfortunately nothing for land. And the 4th item to consider is how much effort do you have to put in to manage this investment? Well, with land, because there's no tenant there, there's almost no effort required. You may have to make sure that there are no weeds growing there which are obnoxious and controlled by the state or federal authorities, but other than that, there's nothing you have to do. Whereas looking after property that's got tenants on it, that takes quite a bit of effort, either on your own part or you have to get a property management company in. So when it comes to our chart, with land, there is essentially no effort required. Of course, there's also no income, But when it comes to property, yeah, there's quite a bit of effort involved there. At the end of the day, land doesn't require any effort at all, and it does appreciate. However, what I like to look at is the ROI, the return on investment. And because there's no cash flow from land, you've got no return on investment. To me, it doesn't even qualify as an investment. If you want to look at something that generates income, you have to look at something other than land. Now, maybe you can do something with the land. You could develop it so that you turn it into something that generates income, but that is now a different category of investment. That is called a development. For instance, I once had 168 acres of land in the Arizona desert, and we couldn't figure out what to do with it because it was in the middle of nowhere. It had no value for a residential development. So what I did is I spent 3 months and 24 earth-moving machines digging a dirty big hole in the desert. In fact, we dug 24 acres of a hole, and then I spent another 3 months filling this hole with water, because what we developed essentially was a pair of twin water ski lakes. And the value of the land around the water ski lakes went up in value by way more than the value of the land we lost by taking 24 acres out of circulation. So in this case, we developed it into a water ski park. That is a great thing you can do with land. Or another example is there was a place where there was a lot of sheep farming, and sheep farming went out of fashion. A third of sheep farmers went broke. And what I did is I bought those sheep farms for pennies on the dollar and then planted a crop and waited 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, I could get my first harvest. And the crop I planted was grapes. I turned the farms into vineyards, and everyone wanted to say that they owned a vineyard. So the value of the land went up by a factor of 10. That is a good development. To be sure, what we just talked about, turning a desert into water ski lakes or turning sheep farms into vineyards, they are specifically a development. It's not really investing in land, it's developing land. So in comparing investing in land with investing in property where there's an existing cash flow, I strongly favor investing in property because you have cash flow from day one. And the interesting thing is, if you can figure out a way of increasing your cash flow, you increase your returns, which is what it's all about. And that's why I've got this book that we're re-releasing right now, which you can get access to by clicking on the link below, which shows you multiple ways of how you can increase the value of an existing property without spending much money. Thanks again for watching. Remember to subscribe. If you found this at all inspirational, check out my video where I talk about the 5 books that I read that inspired me to go even further in real estate. Thank you again. Remember to subscribe. I look forward to seeing you again soon.